If you missed the cookout last night, you really missed it. And what I mean by that is, we're going to talk about love today and having a love checkup. Michaela actually got a first-hand taste of the love that the men in this church have for her as big brothers, grandpas, and fathers. She had her boyfriend show up and she wanted to introduce him to us.
Oh my gosh.
Here come me and Roy and Jordan and
Dan with his switchblade.
Oh, of course, Dan's glass down there with his switchblade. That was just for effect. Vinny, all of us just apexed this poor boy. And he looked like a little kid that had been caught stealing something. But bless his heart, we did let him know we loved him. We said, now listen, we're just messing with you, kinda. But you need to know that we all love this little girl. We're out here to protect her. We said, go ahead and have a hot dog. Make yourself. He was gone. We didn't see him for another 2 hours. He was gone. So anyway, we had a good time. And so now she got a first-hand taste. She's well protected. So, as well as any other young lady in our church or these young girls that are coming up. Okay? So today I really wanted to. Sometimes in life you have to stop and say, all right. Well, you know, like a couple weeks ago, I took my car to roll. And I said, you know what? That's our new car. And I said, let's just check it out. Let's check the brakes. Let's make sure everything is what it's supposed to be. And if it's not what it's supposed to be, let's fix it so that we know that it'll run better, it'll be safe, it'll do what it was made to do. And so that's exactly what sometimes we need to bring our lives into the shop. And that's what Sunday church to me is that we come into the shop and we all get a little tune-up. Sometimes we tune each other up. Sometimes something I say might help tune you up a little. When I'm preparing it, I get the tune-up. Trust me. This week has been no different. It's kind of convicting, actually. But, you know, so you're here this morning, and what I want you to do is think, okay, I want to see if I need a tune-up. So the honest question is, we're going to look at love, and what is biblical love as opposed to what the world says love is. Now, of course, this comes on the heels of the vote of the Supreme Court this week and all that, and I'm not going to get political and get into all that. All I'm going to tell you is that I believe in the Bible and I'll stand with the Bible. Now, does that mean you don't love homosexuals and gay? No, that doesn't mean that at all. Jesus loves them. Jesus reaches out to them. We don't have to accept or agree with the lifestyle because of what the Bible teaches. So, but that's not really where we're going. What we're talking about today is specifically to me, how am I doing in this thing called love? Because let me ask you this question. How many commandments are there? 10. Agreed? You're wrong. There are 11. Here's why. Jesus said, and here's the verse. Jesus said in John 13, 34 through 35, he said, a new commandment I give you, that you love one another. Now really it's not a new command. It's just a command that fulfills all 10 commandments. Right? Here it is. A new command I give you, that you love one another, even as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this all men will know that you are my disciples, if you have loved one for another. Now this is one of the reasons why I want to do a checkup. Because right now the world needs to see, because there are so many pictures of what love's supposed to be. And Hollywood comes out with a new movie every week, and it tells us this is what love is. And of course it's not. I can't even show the slides about Hollywood's version. Can't show them. Because it would be nothing but sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and you name it. And that's their idea of love. And if you don't like this one, it's just time to just dump that, get on to another one, get that one, dump that one, get on to another one. And so, but this is what Jesus said, a new commandment I give you, that you love one another as I have loved you. Okay? And so we'll look at what that means. And then there's another one here in Matthew chapter 22, verse 34 through 40. Listen to what he says. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, I love that. He had already put the Sadducees in the dirt. And the Pharisees got together. All right, fellas, let's trick him. All right? One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question. Teacher, what's the greatest commandment in the law? And Jesus replied, because they didn't think he could, Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your strength. And then he says, this is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Have you ever stopped to think about that? Do you love your neighbor as you love yourself? Your neighbor's sitting right beside you. Could be your husband, your wife, could be your children, could be your next door neighbor, could be your boss, could be your coworker. They are your neighbors. Do you love them as you love yourself? When you're hungry, you feed yourself. When you're naked, you clothe yourself. When you are lonely, you try to comfort yourself, right? So the situation is this. Are we loving as we would love ourselves? Now, when I was in high school, I remember I asked my dad one time, I said, Dad, I think I just got into a Duke. By the way, you're going to notice this. I figured you guys got to put this up. I've got a swollen eye, and Cynthia's not here. Y'all are probably putting this together. Actually, she's on another assignment she's having to do today with the college. And I got too close to a horse, and my eye almost full shut yesterday. But in high school, I did get into a Duke out. And so I told my dad, I said, hey, Dad, I said, even the Bible says, do unto others as they do unto you. He said, oh, wait a minute, son, hold on. You kind of misquote, you're misunderstanding that verse. Well, it says, turn their other cheek. No, not turn their other cheek, you turn your cheek. So he had to kind of get me straightened out on some of these things. But the thing is, am I loving like I should be? Now, remember, this verse just said, if people, they will know that you are my disciples by your love one for another. To me, this is huge. Think about this. When you see a cranky Christian, and by the way, cranky Christians have done more to hurt the cause of Christ than anything else. Crabby, cranky. Well, I go to church on Sunday mornings, right? And so you, are you? She pointed at me. You know, I've seen all these elbows going across the room. She said, you may be the problem in Atlanta is you're just waking up grumpy. And she says, no, I let him sleep in every morning. But, you know what, here's the thing. Every one of us in this room are sheep. We are human beings. We have crankiness. We have short tempers. We have problems. So how can I possibly love the way the Bible says to love? How can I do that? And so that's what I want to talk to you about this morning. So, now let's talk about this for a second. The world is starving to death for authentic love. In fact, the subtitle, if you look in your bulletin, the subtitle is love. Is it a feeling or is it an action? Is love a feeling or is it an action? If you go ask 20 different people, what is your definition of love? You're going to get 20 different answers, and they're all going to be about feelings. I'll guarantee it. It's all about feelings. But biblical love isn't about feelings. It's about action, and the feelings are a byproduct of the action. Okay? When a person is kind, there's a feeling that comes with that. But love is kind. Okay? So we'll get into that specifically in just a minute. But the world is starving to death right now for authentic love. They need it, they want it, but they're not seeing it. If they don't see it in us as Christians, where are they going to find it? Now let me ask you, if you went and got on an airplane, and you said, who's the captain here today? Oh, we got a blow-up doll, and he's got a captain's outfit, and so we put the blow-up doll in the cockpit. He's going to fly the airplane, just go to autopilot. You don't want a blow-up doll. You want an authentic. You want a real pilot in that seat. You're on trial for murder. Your best friend says, I got it. Don't worry about this. Puts a suit on and says, I can do this. You don't want your best friend representing you in a murder trial. You want a real attorney, right? Flowers. I think I did this for you one time before. I showed you a bouquet of real flowers and a bouquet of fake flowers right beside them. There's a big difference in the way they look and in their fragrance, isn't there? What about smashed taters? Anybody like mashed taters? There's nothing like mashed taters, but pull them out of a box. You don't want instant mashed taters. My granny used to make those things, and I'll tell you what, I told you, my grandma could cook. I had my first heart attack at 4 and because of her cooking. And but the problem is that you don't want fake taters, right? You want the real deal. What about hair? Would you rather have a toupee or real hair? Okay? Now, they're making these things look pretty good nowadays, but there, you know, there's a day when those things look more like a rat's nest on somebody's head. Would you like a picture of a new car, or would you like the new car? The idea is the difference between real versus fake and out there somewhere. So here we are. We're going to do this. Now, notice he said here that you're to love the Lord your God with your whole mind, soul, and strength. Now, remember when we studied in spiritual warfare, spirit, soul, and body? So you're to love the Lord with your whole heart. That's your spirit. Your whole mind. That's your soul. Mind and emotions. And your whole strength. That's your body. Okay? Out of this three-part person that we are to love. And how does that, why is that significant? Because Jesus moves into your heart when you give your life to Him. And He's the wellspring that the love comes from. Now remember, there's three different kinds of love, and there's, the Bible talks about it with the Greek words and stuff, the eros, phileos, and agape, or agape. And phileos meaning what? Brotherly love, friendship. You're my brother, you're my friend, all right? Eros, which is the sexual love, and that's, the Bible's very clear about that. Okay? And then the agape love, which is the, how would you define it when you think about agape love? One word. Unmerited, undeserved, what else? How about unconditional? I love you unconditionally. Now I've done this before, and I'll do it again as a point of review. When it comes to love, there are three kinds that the world offers. There's two kinds the world offers and one that God gives. If kind of love, remember. Because kind of love, and in spite of. The if kind of love says, I'll love you if you have a lot of money, if you're good looking, if you stay good looking, if you stay trim and ripped like Jacob, if you are, you drive a nice car and you live in a nice house and you have a good bank account. There's the because kind of love that says, I love you because you are wealthy, you drive a nice car, you're good looking, you got a great body, you've got nice clothes, you've got a great position and prestige. I love you because of these things. What's the problem with those two kinds of love?
Conditional.
It's conditional. There's strings attached. So what happens if all of a sudden you no longer look like Brad Pitt, but you look like a mud turtle? It happens, right? And so what happens if you have a lot of money and now you're pinching pennies hard enough for Lincoln to get a nosebleed? I appreciate that one. Ben, that's a good one. What happens when all of a sudden the money's gone? What happens when, and I think I told you the story about the young Oriental girl. They were engaged to get married. She was gorgeous. Had her face, half her face blown off in a boiler plant. And when the man saw her, he took the ring and he said, I can't do this. And she died. Dave Reaver, on the other hand, who was a Vietnam vet, had half of his face blown off, down to the skeleton, with a phosphorus grenade. His wife came in and said, you're as gorgeous as you've always been, and kissed him right on his ugly old part of his face. And, he lived and he travels the world telling everybody about the Lord. The difference is how deep is your love? Is it if and because? Or is it, I love you in spite of the fact that now you're as ugly as a mud turtle? I love you in spite of the fact that you now are you are so broke you can sit on a nickel and dangle on your feet. I love you in spite of the fact that you've grown that beard clear down to your knees. No offense, brother. The Duncan dynasty. There's actually two more of you, right? A couple more of you coming with the whiskers. You should have seen those guys trying to eat a marshmallow last night. That was a tough one. So let's look at this. So now we've kind of described the problem. What is love? Now when we look at the world's idea of love, it's black, it's just dark, but God's love is like a diamond on black velvet. Okay, so here we have the agape love. This is the in spite of kind of love. Isn't this how God loves you? Lord, I've blown it. I love you in spite of that. Yes, but Lord, you don't understand. I was really bad. The Apostle Paul killed everybody, right? Killed Christians. I realize you're bad. That dark background, that's your past. But look at the love that God brings, or the world that we live in, and our love shines through. And that's why Jesus said, the way you love each other is how people are going to judge me. They're not going to see me as a loving God if they see cranky children, His children cranky. Remember I told you what Gandhi said? He said, I love your Christ, but I don't like your Christians because they're so different from your Christ. So, very important. Now, Hollywood's version. We gotta do what feels good, right? It's all about feelings and emotion, instant gratification with no consequences, right? Isn't that what they show us? Instant gratification, no consequences. You can either go out and sleep with everybody, no consequences. Or you can go out and kill everybody, no consequences. And these kids are having a hard time deciphering all this stuff anymore. So we've got people out doing things they shouldn't be doing. What Hollywood is actually saying is, I love you. When they say I love you, they're saying I love me and I want you. And that's the lust that they're trying to use. Okay? What about the phrase for better, for worse? Have you noticed that the for worse, that's when people just cut and run? It's like, well, wait a minute, I didn't bargain for this. Yeah, you did, because you said it's better for worse, right? And there are days that it's worse. It's worse. Now, some of you have been married a long time, and you vouch for that. There are days that are tough. It's worse. So when you're doing your love checkup today, we're going to ask ourselves this question. How am I doing when it comes to that? So we're going to look at 1 Corinthians 13, and I'm going to give you 3 things out of here quickly. And as we go, you're going to notice in your bulletin, you might as well go ahead and put your name in this column all the way down. Or you can do like I did, put my name in ditto marks. All right, so that would be your name. Now, this is not to put a guilt trip on you. This is not to make you feel like, well, I'm a loser, right? This is just to get you to ask this honest question. When it says, Mark is patient. And I have to stop and say, okay, am I really patient? Mark is kind. Okay, so you're going to fill in the love quality on the second line on each one that we talk about. All right. Now, just to give you, I don't want to just dissect this. I also want to dispense it. And let me give you a real profound thought. Don't miss this now. Don't miss this. This is deep. Chapter 13 is sandwiched between chapter 12 and 14. That's deep. That took a lot of work. Why do I say that? Because chapter 12 and chapter 14 are all about the gifts of the Spirit. The prophecy and the gift of knowledge and the gift of tongues and all of the stuff. And the Corinthian church was really just a bunch of babies. Now this is probably what their church would look like. Adam, throw up that next one if you would there. Oh, here we go. First, let's talk about this. This is an interesting part you need to understand. In the Greek language, which the Bible was originally written in, and I try not to, I have kind of a personal conviction about not using too much Greek and Hebrew for me because I don't want to be showy and I don't want to show off and be. But sometimes, and this is one of those passages where if you look at these words in the Greek, it will make so much more sense and you'll see how much deeper God's love is than our love. And for an example, when we read this in the English, they're all adjectives. But in the Greek, they're all verbs. Now, what does a verb describe? Action, right? That's significant. Love is not a feeling. Love is an action that will bring a feeling if it's done. All right? All right, so now let's talk about this Corinthian church. They were just a bunch of, there they are right there. If you went to the Corinthian church, there they are. Squabbling and arguing over who has the best gifts and the most gifts and whatever. You know, I said I'd bring the cookies, you brought cake, and that hurts my feelings. And, you know, I can't believe you, Pastor, didn't shake my hand and whatever else and blah, 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 blah. Let's go to the next one there, Adam. Okay, so Gerber baby Christian food. Now, it's one thing to be a baby Christian when you are early in your life, whatever. It's another thing to have supposedly known the Lord for 50 years and you're still crying about baby things. You're still acting about baby things. And what he measures them with is this. He says, let's find out if you're a baby or you're mature. If you're a baby Christian, you're still focused on all of these gifts that you can have and you can demonstrate. But the greater thing is love. And if you're going to be a mature Christian, then you are full of the love that God has. And you will demonstrate it in action. Okay? So this is what he's trying to do right here. Basically, this is Paul's message to the Corinthian church. Y'all are a bunch of babies. And y'all are making a big deal out of these gifts. And so he's trying to correct them. All right? Now we're going to look at the 15 qualities of true love. We're going to do it in just 3 things, all right? So 1 Corinthians 13, he goes on and he talks about the how without love, basically, and we'll get to this one in a second, without love you're a zero. I've told you before, the mark of spiritual maturity is not speaking in other tongues. The mark of spiritual maturity is controlling the one that you have. Now think about that. Well, I speak in lots of tongues, really? But I saw you snap your boss's head off yesterday, or I saw you ball out the lady at the, whatever it is. No, I'm not going to talk about St. Mark. That's different. That's different. Well, you had to go there, didn't I? But trust me, I felt that all week. I was like, okay, I was actually very good, and I didn't do it in front of anybody. That's one thing I won't do, is I'm not going to ball them out in front of somebody, because in fact, somebody asked old David Rogers one time, they said, you brought me to Jesus Christ. And he said, really? Thank you for that. He said, what did I preach that brought you to the Lord? And the lady said, you didn't preach. It wasn't what you preached. She said, I was standing near when somebody criticized you and ripped you apart, and you responded in kindness and love. That told me it was the real deal, and that made me come to Christ. That's what the world is looking for. Not simple superficiality, not baby actions, and some of the stuff that we get hung up on. But anyway, he's kind of coming down on them now for all these gifts things. And he's saying, you can prophesy all you want. If you don't have love, it's nothing. You can give your body to be burned as a martyr. It doesn't mean a thing to God if you don't have love. Okay? So now, this is God's definition of love. Not Hollywood's, not the poet. This is God's definition of love. And this is how we're to love each other, our children, our spouses, everybody. Okay? So we're going to look at them, as you can read it there, but we're going to take them apart. Now this is where we start putting our name in the thing. And this is where I want you to put your name right here. Okay? Number 1, we're going to look at the excelling values of love. And that was basically the love versus the gifts. All right? So it excels all the gifts. Knowing versus showing. People don't know how much you care. The gift of knowledge. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. You can quote Bible verses. I've seen a guy do this. I worked with a guy that quoted Bible verses until the cows came bawling home to be milked. But he would act like a devil. Okay? You give a man that's not saved an education, and all you get is a clever devil. That's all you get. Because you can have all the knowledge, and you can have all this Bible knowledge, and you can quote Bible verses, but if you don't, it's not about your head, it's about your heart. And so this guy couldn't reach a soul. They didn't care about anything he said. They thought he was a big hypocrite. And rightfully so. Now the second thing now is where we're right at right now, the virtues of love, these 15 virtues of love. So ask yourself these 2 questions while we go through this. When I look at love is patient, love is kind, all of this, how does my love measure up with this quality? Okay? And secondly, how would my relationships in life change if I demonstrated this quality of love more? Number 1, love is patient. Now what is that word? The word is macrothumeo, and here's what it means. Long-fused. Wouldn't show up the next slide there, Adam. Now I don't know about you, Nick, we just lost our, can you see the wick there? Okay, so I don't know about you, but you guys all remember the little stick of dynamite I had in church that I lit, and you all about panicked. Your heart's still been defibrillating. But if you had a stick of dynamite and had a long fuse, not so bad. But what about this next one here? Man, you're going to have a problem. You like that booger? These firecrackers. Okay, so love does not have a short fuse. Okay, do you have a short fuse? This says love does not have a short fuse. Love has a long fuse. It takes a long time to get you upset. Now there used to be a program on, I may have told you about this a couple years ago, but there was a program on called Boiling Points. Anybody see this? Boiling Points. It was absolutely hilarious. And I used to have a contest with my wife, and I would say, okay, how long do you think you would last with this one? And what they would do is they would actually put people in scenarios without them knowing it. They would put them in a scenario and there would be this boiling point. They would set the boiling point for, say for example, 3 minutes or 5 minutes, sometimes 6. And if you made it to the boiling point, then you got $100 and you got your notoriety on TV and all this. Most people didn't make it. Here's an example. One guy came in and sat down in a barber chair. Okay? Yeah, if you don't mind, just take a little off the sides and now, let me just ask you, how would you respond? Or if it's your son or daughter, just take a little off. Okay? Most people, the buzzer went off, and boy, I mean, they're upset about, they're screaming out and everything else. Sometimes people are like, dude, what are you doing? Well, take the rest of it off, or whatever. So they would, some people made the boiling point. Here's another one. Warren Sapp wasn't he a defensive tackle, I think, for Buccaneers. This guy was big enough to have a license plate in his own zip code. He was a big man, okay? And he had an attitude. He had a big attitude. That coach that took him all the time, you're so tough, put a jersey on. Remember this? Well, anyway, this is the guy, and he's sitting there at a restaurant, and the lady comes out and goes, can I get you a cup of coffee, sir? Yeah. He does that and then tips a glass over in his lap. And he's like, what? And actually, yeah, he was very patient. I was very surprised. He did blow it. He didn't make it to the end because then they come out and they dump something else in his lap or whatever else. So I could just give you a time and time again, but if you stop and think about it, I'd tell my wife and I'd be like, I wouldn't have made it on that one. I would have made it. Here's one. You bring your dog into the vet. Now, Jacob McKenzie's got a new little dog. He's a cute little guy. And say you bring him into this, a groomer shop, right? You bring him into the groomer shop and you say, I'd like to have my dog washed and groomed. And so, okay, no problem. What's his name? Take the name. You go away, come back in a couple hours. And yes, I'm here to pick up Blaze or whatever. I'm sorry, we don't have a dog by that name. I just brought him in here 2 hours ago. Well, I'm sorry, man, he's not on the list here. We don't have a dog in here by that name. What's he look like? Well, there's not been a dog in here like that. Now, you'll see people climbing the counter. They climbing over the counter. Where's my dog? Upset. So if you put yourself in that situation, would you have a long fuse or a short fuse? Come on. Exactly. Okay. So this is why we're doing a love check now. See, we're saying, okay, maybe I need to work on that one a little bit. Now, you have to understand something right here at the beginning. This is not a love that you and I just by willpower determine we're going to do. It's by submitting to His real power. It is the Spirit of Christ inside. You cannot have in spite of kind of love. You cannot give in spite of kind of love. If Jesus doesn't live on the inside, He's the one He's the wellspring. He is making it flow out of you. And when you want to bite back, He'll help you bite your tongue. When you want to be impatient, He'll help you be patient. When you want to be unkind, He'll help you be kind. If you're not, He'll forgive you and you'll do it better next time. Okay? So, it's the Spirit of the Lord that's doing this. All right, now, love is patient. And if you say it's not humanly possible, you're right. It isn't humanly possible. You cannot do it without the Lord. So how does God develop patience in our life? Well, He develops patience with jerks, bad bosses, mean mates, city market service counter people. All right? I'm serious. I'm determined I'm going to pass this test. And the beautiful thing is you don't flunk God's course. You just have to keep taking it again. So the thing about it is how am I doing there? And because if the guy cuts you off in traffic, I have a choice. Right now I have a choice. Lash out, scream at him, or or let the Lord. Okay, keep your mouth shut. Pray for that guy instead of being mad at him. Pray for him. He needs the Lord. Look at him. He's rushing into life. He's upset. He's in a hurry. Pray for that guy. Now that's hard, but that's what the Lord would have us to do. That's love, because love is patient. Okay? And so when that kind of stuff happens to you, you got to know. This is one of the ways God develops patience. It's Christmas time. There are 32 check stands in this Walmart. Okay? And let's call it City Market. Let's call it City Market. I'm kidding. All right, so there we are, but there's one check stand open. Come on, you ever had this?
Usually.
Yeah, it's a training. Rush hour traffic, busy day. Training person run out of ticker tape. I mean, this is a deal. And there we are. So what do you like by the time you get up there? You're steamed, man. You're upset. So what's your boiling point? Because love has a long boiling point. So how do we do it? We might need a little work right there. Now, we make heroes out of people who say, blow up, get mad, get even with it. We make heroes out of those kind of people. Here's an excellent. Check this out.
The man.
Any names? Any names come to mind? If you, come on, you cannot tell me you haven't had go ahead and make my day. You've never had one of those. All of us. This is how the world says you ought to handle it, and God says no, I don't want you to poke a 45 in their face and tell them to make your day. I want you to make their day. What I want you to do is love on them. They're treating you with unkindness, treat them with kindness. They're treating you with impatience, be patient. And when you do, you're actually pointing God's love gun in their face, and you're saying, let me make your day. There's a huge difference. This is why we're from another world. This is why they say, wow, I like the God they have because I can see it in them. I can see it in them. So how are we doing in these ways? Now I want you to think about this too as we close with this one. What ways has God been long fused with you? How many ways has God been long fused with you? Boy, I'm going to tell you something. I am so glad that God is long fused with me. Second one, love is kind. And we'll move pretty fast here. Love is kind. Mark Twain said, kindness is a language that the deaf can hear and the blind can see. Isn't that true? Patience endures the injuries of others, and kindness pays them back with good deeds. Kindness, sometimes our kindness can be misinterpreted. For example, there was an airplane pilot that was trying to be kind to a gal, and what happened was they were on a flight from San Francisco to Sacramento, and there was a delay. They had to land, and there was some big delay, and so the pilot said, everybody get off, we're going to have about a 50-minute layover, go ahead and get off and stretch your legs. Well, everybody got off, except for one lady, and she was blind, and he knew the stewardess, or the, whatever they call them now, they knew they were blind because they could see the seeing eye dog on the seat. And so the captain actually knew her, and he came out and he said, Kathy, he said, it's the captain. He said, hey, we're in Sacramento, we got about a 50-minute layover, you want to get off and stretch your legs? And she said, no, I don't need to, but listen, my dog might need to stretch his legs. He said, oh, okay, well listen, I'll do that, I'll be glad to. So the pilot took the seeing eye dog, and the pilot stepped off of the plane with the seeing eye dog, and he had his sunglasses on. All the people that are standing in the terminal looking at this pilot get off of this plane with a seeing eye dog were running for their lives. I think they were trying to change the airline, not just the plane and the flight. So sometimes our kindness can be misunderstood. But please keep in mind that nothing hurts the cause of Christ more. I actually called a lady out at one time because she came in and, are these hands fresh? And I mean, she was just going up one side, me down the other. She was plucking me like a Sunday chicken. And I mean, just going. And I said, excuse me, I said, you know what, I'll be glad to get that for you. If that was not good, we'll make sure we get you a good one. Say, don't you go to that church down on the, oh, yes, I do. And all of a sudden, boy, she changed like that. And I thought, man, that's what's given Christianity a bad name. Acting like a devil and pretending to be a Christian. This is terrible. Love is not jealous or envious. The root word means to boil inwardly. You ever do that? There's two kinds of envy. The kind that says, I want what he has, or she has. And the kind that says, I wish he never had it. Now, I did this as an athlete. There were times, you'd be like, man, one little guy I'd wrestle up in Cedar Ridge. This little guy, he'd have to use a janitor broom for a coat hanger. He was just no neck. And we wrestled the same way. We were kind of entertaining. A lot of people like Jacob were finesse wrestlers, and I was just kind of, my brother's way of describing my wrestling was Mark would go out and go. That was my wrestling technique, he said. But this little guy wrestled the same way, and he's the only guy that could really kind of give me a match. Well, so there were times that I actually would say, why couldn't he have been born with polio? Why couldn't he break his leg? Well, it's an envy, right? It's a jealousy, it's an envy. It's like, man, and come on. So is there anything in your life that you're jealous of? Are you jealous or envious of anybody or anything? Now the next one is, love does not brag and is not puffed up. The root word literally means, now listen to this word, it's phusiutai. Listen, phusiutai. Do you know what it means? Windbag. Love is not a windbag. Now you ever see it? Do you see this? Man, I know some windbags in my time. And so it's not a pompous windbag. It's not somebody that's all about themselves. It's not a big head, it's a big heart. It's not big-headed, it's big-hearted. And by the way, a big head and a big heart cannot exist together. It's got to be one or the other. Love does not strut. That's what it's saying. So we're Christians. We're not to strut and act better than thou. That's what this is, those look down their nose at you Christians. Man, I'll tell you what, if you're one of those, don't do that. Stop that. Did you know, there's a verse in Proverbs that says, only by pride comes contention. Now think about people that, church fights, marriage fights. Only by pride comes contention. Do you see any contention in the world? Do you think that our world needs a big dose of agape love? Look at it. Now there's going to come a day when this world will be ruled and reigned with agape love. The kind of love we're talking about, where everybody's patient, everybody's kind, nobody's jealous or envious, and nobody's rude. We just live in an environment where it's nothing but love. But right now, we are seeing nothing but pride. And because of that pride, we have contention. So if you're squabbling, one or both of you have pride in your life. And pride and love cannot live together. Love's not rude. Now, love has good manners. Now, I could say some things right here, because I think that sometimes we can get a little bit lax on our manners. Give me a coat. You know, I knew a guy, that's what he told his wife all the time. Hey, give me a beer. Like she was Kunta Kinte the slave boy. Bring me my beer. Instead of, please, honey, please, or what can I do for you? We've lost our manners. I know guys that belch and rip one right in front of their wives and their children. I think that's rude. Now that's just me. You're like, hey, come on now, you're picking on a boy here that, some guys, that's just their thing. I think it's rude. And the Bible says love is not rude. And so, do you care enough about people? Cell phone interruptions, the little boy that says, no, Daddy, can I listen to me? Daddy, please listen to me. No, Daddy, listen to me with your eyes. Nowadays, remember when you used to open the car door? Love is kind, love is not rude. Nowadays, if a man opens a car door, it's one of two things have happened. Either there's one of two things that's new, either the car or the wife. Now they get open. We just need some good old-fashioned courtesy. Here we go. Love is not self-seeking. I don't love you for what you can do for me. Okay, this is what a lot of people do. Love is not selfish. It denies itself for others. How are you doing on that? How are we doing? It doesn't say me first. Now I love, Joyce Meyer has a thing where you may like her, not like her, I don't know, but she has this little thing called the robot. All right? And on the little robot, it's called the What About Me robot. And it's, what about me? What about me? What about me? What about me? Beep, beep, what about me? Because she said she lived that way for most of her life. What about me? Her husband wants to go, what about me? Okay? So do you have, what about me? What about me? What about my needs? Because love doesn't do that. Love is thinking about you. It's not thinking about me. Okay, next one. Love is not easily angered or resentful. Now please remember, these are not my points. This is God's definition of love. Love is not easily angered or resentful. Do you have a hair trigger? Because that's what this is talking about. Are you irritable? Show up the next one. Now this old girl she got a hair trigger the other day. Should be a gallon of steam out of her ears. Do you fly off the hammer? Do you know where they got that thing, don't fly off the hammer. It's about a loose axe head, and it flies right off of the hammer. That's going to kill somebody. It's going to hurt somebody. Okay? Do you fly off the handle? Love does not fly off the handle. Love does not get easily angered or easily resentful. Okay? Next one, love keeps no record of wrongs. Now this is where our Greek word is going to be helpful here, so pay attention for a second. We're almost done. Love keeps no record of wrongs. You can see what this guy's doing here? Tally marks. The word is logizomai. Love keeps no record of wrongs. The word record, logizomai, it means, it's actually used as a ledger for an accountant. Somebody that's counting the numbers. Okay? Randy uses logizomai every day of his life. He's an accountant. He has to keep track of numbers and how much did you do and how much when. And so this says, love does not keep a record of everything that you do wrong in your life. Man, we're good about this, aren't we? And there are times, now how many of you have a spouse that doesn't, when they get angry, they don't get hysterical, they get historical. Okay? Let me just tell you, oh yeah, that's how you feel, well that's fine. Let me just tell you what you did when Ronald Reagan was president. And when you said it, you were shaking your fist at me and you said it just like this. Man, and it's like, whoa, time out. Now what if God did this? What if God kept tally marks? Because love, God does not keep a record of wrong. You can also insert the name God instead of your name. God is patient. God is kind. God does not keep a record. Aren't you glad God doesn't keep a record of wrongs? What would you do if God kept a record? Well, let me just say, Jason, you know, this week, what we're going to do is we got some special technology here. And I'm going to hook some electrodes up to your brain, and we're going to play your week we're going to show your thought life on this screen up here from this week. And we're going to, anybody want to volunteer for that job? Come on. You're not going to see me hooking up the electrodes. Okay. So how are we? Are we being historical or hysterical? And this is also where gossip comes in, by the way. One gal said, you know, my pastor said never to say anything unless it's good. And boy, is this good. This, man, I'm telling you. But love does not gossip about somebody's wrongs or what we think might be wrong. Okay? And this is where we get into problems, is when we do that. God has not kept any books on our sin, and thank God for that. 2 Corinthians 5:19 says, for God is in the world, reconciling the world to himself, no longer counting people's sins against them. Then it says, love does not rejoice with unrighteousness, but rejoices with the truth. You know the old slogan, friends don't let friends drive drunk, right? Or friends don't let friends take drugs. Friends won't let friends, just fill in the blank. Friends won't let friends because we love them. And if you really know that somebody loves you, you are willing to take the correction. If somebody says, you know, brother, because I've told you this before, if you say, look, you know what, Lord, I am a filthy, rotten, no good, reprobate sinner. Man, I deserve the worst, Lord, I am so sorry, forgive me. And you go to work and your boss says, you are the worst, low life, no good for nothing, rotten sinner. Now it's different. We can tell God that, but if you tell me that, I'm punching you in the nose. Why is that? Are you sincere, or is there pride in your life? Because we are willing to take the correction, and love doesn't rejoice in unrighteousness. If I see you do something that I think you shouldn't do, if I love you, I'm going to tell you. If you love me, you're going to tell me. Hey, look, that's going to hurt you. That is going to hurt you. Don't do that. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever. Love bears all things. If we look at the values, the virtues, the victories, love bears all things. The word is stegai. It means to cover and bear like a load like a roof. Are you willing to do that for the people in your life? Are you willing to bear the load like a roof, like a snow load of their wrongs? They're not excusing it, but you're willing to bear with them. I had a friend, it says believes all things, and I had a friend years ago, and he had 4 kids, and his 4 kids, they were making their own decisions. He was an elder in the church, and they were kind of making their own decisions, and they weren't the best decisions. Well, they were ready to throw this little boy out. He founded the church. He said, well, let me tell you what, I'll step down from leadership. He said, but I want you to know that you are finished with my kids, but God is not. God is not done with my kids. Every one of those kids is serving God with all of their heart now. One of them is a pastor. 2 of them are pastors. So God wasn't done. Because love believes all things, hopes all things, it will work out. So, I'm going to close with this. I'm going to read this to you. This is a book, and if you don't have this, this is a good book to have by Max Lucado. You can't go wrong with a Max Lucado book. This one's called When God Whispers Your Name. All right? And I went to a doctor years ago when I was working for City Market. And I was just so stressed out, and he took my blood pressure and he said, I'm going to write you a prescription. And I said, and I was having a hard time with the people I was working with, and this is many years ago. This is where God was teaching me. And he said, I'm going to write you a prescription. And he wrote, When God Whispers Your Name by Max Lucado. Read the chapter, the excerpt called The Choice. And he said, this is what you need. And so I read it, and it really did change everything for me. Listen carefully to the words of this. It's called The Choice. It's quiet. It's early. My coffee is hot. The sky is still black, and the world is still asleep. The day is coming. In a few minutes, the day will arrive, and it will roar down the track with the rising of the sun, the stillness of the dawn, and it will be exchanged for the noise of the day. The calm of solitude will be replaced by the pounding pace of the human race. The refuge of the early morning will be invaded by decisions to be made and deadlines to be met. For the next 12 hours, I will be exposed to the day's demands. It is now that I must make a choice. Because of Calvary, I am free to choose, and so I choose. I choose love. I remember, I'm going through a situation with all these people at work, and I'm ready to pop them in the nose. I don't want to love it, but this is my problem. I choose love. No occasion justifies hatred. No injustice warrants bitterness. And I choose love. Today I will love God, and I will love what God loves. I choose joy. I will invite my God to be the God of circumstance, and I will refuse the temptation to be cynical, the tool of the lazy thinker. I will refuse to see people as anything less than human beings created by God. And I will refuse to see anything and any problem as anything less than an opportunity to see God. I choose peace. I will live forgiven, and I will forgive so that I may live. I choose patience. I will overlook the inconveniences of the world. Instead of cursing the one who takes my place, I'll invite him to do so. Rather than complain that the wait is too long, I will thank God for a moment to pray. Instead of clenching my fist at new assignments, I will face them with joy and with courage. I choose kindness. I will be kind to the poor, for they are alone. Kind to the rich, for they are afraid. And kind to the unkind, for such is how God has treated me. I will go without a dollar before I take a dishonest one. I will be overlooked before I will boast. I will confess before I will accuse. I will choose goodness, and I choose faithfulness. Today, do you see what this is? It's the fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. I choose gentleness. Oh, let me back up. I will keep my promises. My debtors will not regret their trust. My associates will not question my word. My wife will not question my love. And my children will never fear that their child father will not come home. I choose gentleness. Nothing is won by force, and I choose to be gentle. If I raise my voice, may it only be in praise. And if I clench my fist, may it only be in prayer. And if I make my demand, may it be only of myself. I choose self-control. I am a spiritual being. After this body is dead, my spirit will soar. And I refuse to let what will rot rule the eternal. And I choose self-control. I will be drunk only by joy, and I will be impassioned only by my faith. I will be influenced only by my God, and I will be taught only by Christ, and I will choose self-control. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and self-control. To these I commit my day. If I succeed, I will give thanks. If I fail, I will seek His grace. And then, when this day is done, I will place my head on His pillow and rest. Father, today we do just exactly that. As we do this love check, we have to ask that question. Am I patient? Am I long-fused? Am I kind? Kindness will win more people than any words we could ever speak. Are we rude and unmannerly? Lord, there's just so many things about real love that is an action. And I know, Lord, you would have us be tuned up as we go out this door today, to be tuned up, to be a real, true representation of what Christianity and our Christ followers are supposed to be all about. Lord, if we don't, we're just hypocrites. We might as well fill this building full of grain and forget it. We are to be your hands, your mouth, your feet, your love, your hug, your encouragement. We are to be Jesus in this world. And so, Lord, as we do this checkup, it starts right here, right now, with our own family. It starts with our children, our grandchildren. It starts with our mates. It starts with each other. And then we can pass the test of the past. Lord, if there's anybody here today that doesn't know Jesus Christ, they will never know this kind of love and never be able to give this kind of love because it comes from you. There's no way I can just willpower this. It's the Spirit of God in us that is bringing it about. So, Lord, help us to be better at being more Christ-like. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.